Okay, so a couple things I just want to talk about on lighting is that lighting has, all light does, it always has like a hard area and then it kind of softens out to the edge. And I'm using an Octabank usually in my studio, and it's a lot more even, but there's still always a softer edge. And so this little graphic just kind of shows that softer feathered edge. And so typically people aim the light directly at somebody, and that gives you a very blotchy look. And what I call blotchy is really that transition between highlight and shadow. When the light's hitting somebody, it goes, and it's just blotchy. But it just becomes very soft if you can just twist that light and use the very edge of that light and let the rest of it just kind of just fall off and go where it needs to go. And the closer the light, the softer too. So for the most part, like when I was shooting that little baby, I had that light super tight and really in close, and it probably wasn't ideal for TV to get in there and see because I was really, really close, but I was trying to get the softest light possible on that little baby.
Sure. Now on this diagram, if you go back, I think a lot of people, when I teach and what I see reactions with students is, I think they get really afraid of using just that bare edge, because it seems like, if you think about the way that's placed, it seems like the bulk of the light is not hitting anything, not hitting the subject, it's just kind of going past the subject. So I think a lot of times photographers tend to try to key that light in, and they end up using that really hot spot. I don't think they see the balance there. So that's a really great, I've never seen this this sort of little picture version of it, but it's kind of a great way to kind of showcase that.
Yeah, and I mean, years ago, everybody used parabolics, and you had to be very, very specific, and softbox, when they came out, were kind of considered cheating. But the trick is, I mean, they really are easy as long as you feather it and use that far edge and just let the other light just go off where it doesn't need to be.
Very cool.
So then here might be like a typical setup. A lot of times people aim that middle of the light, but we want to feather it over. And it can be, here's the other thing too, is I want the light usually somewhere other than the camera. And so a lot of times if you're shooting like a wedding or something, you have a bracket or something with your light right on there, but always is better to kind of get that light anywhere off and around. The further away from the camera, the more aggressive those shadows are going to be, and the more precise. With a baby and stuff, we want to be safer, so we're bringing it closer and closer back to the camera again. But I just kind of consider that safe towards the camera and aggressive towards the edge. And with like high school seniors, you can be a way more aggressive. Kids, you got to kind of be safer.
Sure, sure.
A couple other things here, that's like super aggressive there. And then here's the thing on groups, because we were talking about families, and in the studio here, we were photographing smaller families, like I think that one family was like 6 and one was like 5. But there's some problems we have with groups that are exaggerated when we have a bigger group. So if we shoot a group of 30 the way we shoot a group of 5, we're going to have a problem, and that is, one, we want to light everybody evenly, but we also don't want to make it look flat and dull. So we kind of got to get that light a little bit to the side, but we also don't want it to have too much fall off on the edges where the edges look dull and dark.
Sure.
So most people try to put that light, especially like school dances, they put the light as close as they can to the camera. It's going to make it look a little flatter. But if we can get that light a little bit off the side, we can get a lot more dimension. But the trick then is to aim the hottest spot to the far end and let the soft edge catch the family. So we're getting very even.
Very cool.
Very even light. And then adding a second light, we just do the same thing on the other side.
And I think the big groups, that's where people really get nervous. When you have the family of 10 and 15 and 22, all of a sudden that light placement becomes critical.
Right.
Because those shadows, I mean, we've all accidentally taken the picture where, you know, you've got the big shadow on your neighbor. So you've obviously got too strong of a light kind of coming across the body, and you get these big blotchy shadows, and those are a real distraction. So how do you manage eliminating those?
So one is you kind of, especially if you're on location, you don't always have modeling lights with a lot of the portable setups.
Strobes and things, right?
So you're kind of imagining, and what I always do is I kind of get the group generally set, and I walk over to that light, and I just kind of look, and I'm just looking to see who's going to be throwing a shadow on the next person, and I'm either have that person lean in more, and we're trying to get the group to be as flat as possible. So we're not really building in rows like this. The people in the back row are leaning in, people in the front sitting on the floor are sliding as close as they can in. We're getting that as flat as possible.
So but your depth, your plane of focus.
My plane of focus is as flat as possible, and then my light a little bit to the side to kind of throw a little bit of shadow, but not too much.
Very cool.
And then here's the big thing on groups. Your camera focuses, if you're focusing in the middle of the group, we tend to build groups in a line, because that's how we see the group. But the bigger that group is, the more the people on the edge are going to be smaller and smaller and smaller and out of focus, because that focal plane is the distance to the lens. So this kind of shows this graphic. That focal plane is like a circle. And so everybody on those edges are going to be out of focus and look smaller. So instead of our group looking like this, they're actually going to look like that. And they're going to be soft edges. And so you notice this on like maybe someone who's learning or shooting, and they go do a big family group, and it's maybe their first family group, and the sides go smaller, darker, and out of focus.
Huh. I've never seen the chart like that. That looks really, I mean, I know the rule, but it's like I've never actually thought about it in that circular perspective. That's cool.
So
Very cool.
what we need to do is to straighten that out, we have to bring all those people up so that they fit that circle. And so your distance to the group determines the arc. And some people will use string. Some people kind of visualize it, but I think like string's a very handy way. But for whatever reason, whatever you do, you have to make sure that everyone's on that focal plane.
So when you say string, they take a string from the camera to the center point,
Yeah.
and then as they move it around, those people have to kind of curve
Exactly.
around to, oh, that's interesting.
Tie a string on the tripod and just run it up there and stop with your thumb and just move it up, and you'll realize really quickly how far away everybody is. And they have to slide up, slide up, slide up, slide up, slide up.
Very cool. Very cool.